It's Friday. The Hornets officially have a 15-man roster, and welcome to another episode of Hornets Daily, your one-stop shop for all things Charlotte Hornets. As always, we're presented by the good people over at FanArc, and I'm your host, Vance Ballard, but you know by now you can call me VB. I want to thank everybody for joining us today, watching along with us. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment down in the comments section. As you know, we enjoy watching you guys interact down there, hearing some of your thoughts on what's going on the show as we continue to grow and build this Hornets Daily family here on the program. As we mentioned, the Hornets have officially gotten their roster down to the number 15. Spencer Dinwiddie is the last man to go. He was waived by the Hornets on Thursday. We'll talk a little bit about that on the program today. What does that waiving mean for Tre Mann and KJ Simpson? We'll discuss the potential new roles for those two guards on the program today as well. And as we get ready, we're right on the doorstep of the regular season kicking off next Wednesday against the Nets. As we approach that day, are the Hornets actually playoff ready? That's something we've talked about a lot this summer. We'll discuss it a little bit more on the show today as we get ready for the regular season on Wednesday. And it is game day. The final preseason matchup of this offseason takes place on Friday against the New York Knicks. We'll talk a little bit about that to wrap the show up today. But you know, we don't beat around the bush here on Hornets Daily. We dive headfirst into the program, and that's exactly what we're going to do here today. I mentioned it at the beginning, but Spencer Dinwiddie has been waived. The Hornets have officially gotten their roster down to the number 15. We've known for a while now that has been something they've needed to do. They've made a couple other moves coming into training camp, allowed for this roster that, as it was, to have a tryout, I suppose, for the final 15-man roster, and Spencer Dinwiddie did not make the cut. Now, a month ago, I think this move would have come as quite a shock to most, if not everybody. Most people, if not everybody, myself included. I would have been very surprised if you would have told me that Spencer Dinwiddie was not going to make the final roster. But based on his performance in the training camp, the 2 games he played in preseason, it just seems like it wasn't going to work, and the Hornets have decided to move on from the 11-year veteran. Now, there was some optimism when Dinwiddie was signed as to what he could bring to this team, a veteran who averages double-figure scoring off the bench. He can come off the bench and play either guard position if he needed to. He could fill in some spot starts as well, again, at either the 1 or the 2, and he could provide a sense of veteran leadership for this young group that's going to be on the bench for the Hornets this season. But like I said, his first 2 preseason performances just weren't very good. It doesn't seem like it's clicking in camp, and so the Hornets have decided to move on. What that does mean, though, is Pat Connaughton and Josh Green are safe. They are going to make the roster. I know Josh Green was just kind of up in the air. That was a name that was mentioned a couple of times, mainly based on his injury that he's dealing with right now. But Pat Connaughton was highly talked about as one of the guys who could potentially be moved on from. So I know he's excited to make another NBA roster, and I think it has a little bit to do with his relationship with Charles Lee. We know, as you know, they spent some time together in Milwaukee, as well as Connaughton's experience in having been in a championship locker room, having been a part of a championship team, been a piece in a championship victory, as a matter of fact. So I think all of those things helped kind of put Connaughton over the top. And his contract, that lingo's a little bit confusing, but it is a little easier to move on from Dinwiddie's than it was Pat Connaughton's in the first place. So that is all of those things probably factored into why it was Spencer Dinwiddie who was cut and not Pat Connaughton, not Josh Green, not anybody else. The Hornets are moving on. Despite moving on from Spencer Dinwiddie, though, there is still no shortage at the guard position, as we know. Still an abundance of guards on this roster. Honestly, cutting Spencer Dinwiddie didn't really unclog the logjam that we've been talking about all summer. And 2 of the guys that are going to benefit from the waiving of Dinwiddie are Tre Mann and KJ Simpson. I think, honestly, more it's going to be KJ benefiting from this than Tre Mann. That's just because I think that Tre Mann was already going to play a bigger role than Spencer Dinwiddie. He was safe, not safe, but he was more comfortable in what he was going to mean to this team, and I don't think Dinwiddie was going to steal a lot of minutes from him. as he looks ready to return to his potential six-man of the year play that he was or form that he was playing with before going out last year with an injury. And I don't think, again, he was ever in any danger of losing minutes to Spencer Dinwiddie. It also makes me feel a little bit more comfortable, actually a lot more comfortable, about the status of Trey Mann's right hip. As you know, he didn't play on Wednesday against the Mavericks, and he left the game early, the preseason game early before that, due to some right hip soreness. But moving on from Spencer Dinwiddie, a guy who could definitely play in place of Trey Mann if the Hornets felt he wasn't ready to go or wasn't going to be ready to go, makes me feel much more comfortable about Mann's status for Wednesday and going forwards into the regular season. Now, this move, again, I said KJ Simpson's going to benefit more from it. The reason being because he now moves up the depth chart with Dinwiddie being waived, as opposed to like Trey Mann didn't really go anywhere. He didn't move up on the depth chart. He was already ahead of Spencer Dinwiddie in that regard. Simpson's performance in the Summer League, along with what he put on display last season when he was thrown into the fire, having to play as a rookie in the NBA due to the injuries that the Hornets dealt with, all of those things seem to combine to be enough to prove to Charles Lee that there is something there. It's worth moving on from a veteran because of what KJ Simpson can bring to the table when he is asked. There obviously won't be a lot of KJ Simpson. He'll play on a two-way contract. He'll be in Greensboro. But the good news there is that he'll be constantly getting live game reps, much like I said about Sion James on the show this week as well. He'll be constantly getting live game reps. He'll be able to develop in real time while playing and getting experience that way, as opposed to just kind of wilting away on the end of the bench, waiting for his opportunity, waiting for those garbage time minutes to collect when he can. So it's going, but at the same time now, without Spencer Dinwiddie, there is going to be a time where it's going to be load management situation. Someone's going to get injured. We know hopefully this is the year it doesn't happen to LaMelo, but if it does, that's going to bring KJ out of Greensboro, and the Hornets seem to be comfortable enough with him and with his play, with his performance, to move right to fit him right in, and he'll be in the NBA playing on the roster that way. But again, like I say, no matter what, he'll be getting live reps, and that's going to be what counts. He's going to be doing that in Greensboro alongside Sion James, probably Liam McNeely for a little while as well, but we'll touch on that later on or more on that next week. I mean, as we get ready for the regular season. But now there is one less player in KJ Simpson's way when it comes to getting him on the court for the actual NBA season. There's one less guy to do that and get in the way of KJ Simpson. Speaking of the regular season, it is right around the corner, as I mentioned earlier. Opening night is Wednesday in Charlotte against the Brooklyn Nets, and it's been a heavy topic all summer, but can the Hornets actually make a play-in, get a seed to be in the play-in tournament? Can they make a run through the Eastern Conference and get an actual playoff seed? Now, I don't want to get crazy and even begin to ask, can they make a run in the playoffs? Where that'd be way ahead of ourselves. No need to put the cart in front of the horse there. But can they make a legitimate case for being a playoff team this year? One big piece of that is going to be Miles Bridges, as we know, and his preseason performances could go a long way towards making the answer to that question a yes. Miles has come out and been a man on a mission this preseason. As we know, he had 29 points in a double-double performance against the Mavericks on Wednesday night. Not likely to see him tonight against the Knicks, or at least I hope not anyway. So he's done for the preseason. We can hope, but his performances can give us some hope that he will stay to that form going into the regular season, and he'll be a major piece in leading this Hornets or helping lead this Hornets team to the postseason. The longest tenured Hornet in Miles Bridges, as we talked about yesterday, he's trying to fill that veteran leadership role. He's trying to work his way into that veteran leadership role and become more of a leader on this Hornets team. So doing that along with playing at a high level is going to really help the Charlotte team going forwards this regular season. If he can continue that play and the Hornets can get over their biggest obstacle this season, which is the biggest obstacle for them every season, and that is health, then I definitely think this roster is talented enough to get a spot at the very least in the play-in tournament. I even think with the depleted Eastern Conference, with the way it's run down right now, I think there's a chance the Hornets could, if things go the right way, if they get hot there at the end. Actually, if the first month or so of the season, if the Hornets come out of the gate firing, they can put themselves in a very good spot early in the year with the weaker half of this, with the weaker part of the schedule being there at the beginning. I think the Hornets can set themselves up for at least a play-in spot and even a potential chance to just be in the playoffs, not have to worry about the play-in tournament at all. Now, another thing about that getting there is I'll be very surprised if it's not Colin Sexton starting next to LaMelo Ball in the backcourt on Wednesday night. And if that is if not, then it's Con Knippel, and that we knew that's a possibility. But if that is the case, if it is Colin Sexton, that puts a fourth legitimate scorer on the floor for the Hornets to start things off. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that Con is not going to be a legitimate scorer, or even him playing doesn't put a fourth offensive option on the floor for the Hornets. It's just that we know for a fact Colin Sexton is an 18 points per game guy. He did it last year. That's his career numbers. That's right where he sits, so we just know he can score. We know, or he's capable of scoring. Obviously, we know Con is supposed to be a good shooter. We know what all he brings, all the tools, all the intangibles, all the high IQs, the competitiveness. That I'm not saying anything bad about Con, but it's more, to me, it's more about playing what you know you're going to get on, especially opening night. So I think if Colin Sexton can run out there again, that gives the Hornets a fourth legitimate scoring threat on the offensive side of the ball to start things off. Now, it's no secret that not just Colin Sexton, but a lot of other guys the Hornets added this offseason were to increase the shooting percentage from last year, were to add some shooting depth both to the starting roster and coming off the bench, and it's going to need to pay off early because the defensive end of the floor, if we're being very honest here, is quite scary when it comes to the Hornets. I do think they'll continue to improve on that end of the floor. I've said it over and over again. I'm very high on Charles Lee. I'm all the way bought in on him, and I know his mindset and his preference is to be a defensive first team, and so I think he will get that implemented here in Charlotte, and I think the Hornets will continue to improve, but it's going to take some time. And so it's going to be important for the offense to hold up and pick up the pace like we've talked about, convert on their shots, not turn the ball over, be smart, be efficient with their scoring. It's going to be crucial for them to do that in the early going while this defense continues to develop and continues to get where they need to be. As you know, I'm very high on Moussa Diabate, and I'm also getting there on Ryan Kalkbrenner, but it's starting to look like those two are going to be used as kind of I don't know how to exactly word this, but more of a combination role, more situational style play using Moussa when there's a more athletic, not as traditional big in the paint, and then using Kalkbrenner in situations where a traditional big or a bigger guy, a more rim protecting presence is going to be needed. I think that is what we're starting to lean towards until at least Charles Lee figures out which one he truly likes better as the 30-plus minute a night guy, and it may not get to that point. It may just remain where they're playing about the same amount of minutes, again, just coming in situationally, as opposed to saying, hey, Moussa, you're the starter, Kalkbrenner, you're the backup, or Mason, you're the starter, Moussa, you're the backup. It might not come down to that. It's starting to look like the Hornets are just going to have a center by committee, to take from an NFL term there, as you know, the way they do in the NFL with running backs. It might be the Hornets do the center that way. We're still trying to figure that out, but I do think that could work, as they'll need some time to figure out how they fit into that role, both Moussa and Ryan Kalkbrenner, and get more comfortable. But I do think it could work to have them play in those certain situations all throughout the game, honestly, especially depending on matchups as the game goes along. Most importantly to this whole thing, wrapping it all back up, are the Hornets playoff ready? That was a bit of a rant there, but wrapping it all back up, most importantly is going to be the leaders on this team. Miles Bridges, as the most veteran, the longest tenured Hornet, is going to be an extremely important leader on this team, but LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller as well, and we've talked about this offseason. They're doing a nice job developing into those leadership roles. I said yesterday we're going to see a different version of LaMelo this year, and that's going to go a long way towards his leadership. That's what's going to be key to the Hornets' success, is going to be their veterans, their experienced guys, their tenured guys becoming leaders, showing the young guys how to take that next step forwards and actually become winners. And that's what's going to lead to this culture change and to the Hornets being able to make the playoffs. And I do think they're capable of doing exactly that. Way before we get to the playoffs, though, we've got to finish up the preseason, and we're going to do that here on Friday night. The final game of the preseason is set for tip-off at 7:30 p.m. from Madison Square Garden against the New York Knicks. Now, this should not be a knockdown, drag-out, super thrilling basketball event. It's still going to take place, and it's going to be fun to watch, but I would expect to see very little, if any, of the starters from either of these two teams. It's late in the preseason. Opening night is next Wednesday. It's just not a time. It's not a time where the starters are being played. It's not a time worth taking that risk. And I think after Wednesday's dominating victory over the Grizzlies, Hornets fans should not want to see the starters play on Friday night. I know I don't anyway. This will give Charles Lee a really good chance to take a look at the young guys as a whole. Now, obviously, I know they've been playing a lot of big minutes here in the preseason anyway. Everybody's been getting their turn on the floor, but a lot of the young guys have been getting the big minutes. But Charles Lee's had to watch his veterans throughout this preseason as well. He's got a lot of new guys. It's a whole rebuilt roster, so he doesn't have time to just focus on the young guys, as he's still trying to learn his veterans and the rest of his team as well. So tonight's game will give him the chance to watch all of the young guys on the floor at the same time, build an entire unit of just young players if he wants to, and watch and see what they're capable of and really get a more full picture, 100% understanding of what all he's got in terms of his youth and his new guys and the younger players on this Hornets team. It's also one final preseason look at the center position, where we may see a lot of Musa, we may not. I'm not sure how much Musa Diabate is going to play tonight, but it could be that Charles Lee wants to give him a heavy workload along with Ryan Kalkbrenner and see what both of them have in one final preseason game before the decision has to be made on Wednesday. He may still feel like he needs to see a few things from one or both of those guys. I'm sure Kalkbrenner is going to play a lot. Again, he's a rookie. He's still learning. There is still definitely a lot we need to see from him. But the question is how much Diabate is going to play tonight, and where Charles Lee is at in that decision being made of who's going to start at center against the Nets. Again, I'm not really looking for a whole lot out of this one. Maybe some flashes from some of the rookies, maybe some flashes from some of the guys we don't get to see a lot of, and Antonio Reeves can put together a nice performance. Maybe a strong KJ Simpson night coming off the brinks of learning he's got a chance now to get a few more minutes or a real chance to get some playing time on this Hornets roster. So something like that could be something to keep an eye on, but again, nothing crazy exciting out of the final preseason game. It's all about just making it to Wednesday with everyone still intact and getting this regular season going underway. Once again, still going to be a basketball game, still going to be a lot of fun to watch. We're going to have all of the information about that preseason game coming at you on Monday's show, but that's going to do it for us here today. Thanks, as always, for watching. Once again, if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button. Trying to get over 400. We're inching closer and closer to that number there. Then we'll go for 5, 6, 7 after that as we continue to grow this Hornets Daily family here on the program. Everyone have a safe weekend. Looking forward to seeing you right back here on Monday for another episode of Hornets Daily.